Well, hi. First off, thank you very much for having me. I'm Nick Chubb. I am the founder and strategy director of THETIUS. THETIUS is a research firm. We help maritime industry leaders to make strategic technology decisions. And we work across two main areas, the first being digitalization and all of the emerging digital technologies, and the second being decarbonisation and how we're going to fix this very tricky net zero problem. So we are as I said, we're a research firm. So a big part of what we do is about bringing in a huge amount of information, synthesizing it, summarizing it, and making it available to our users to support decision making. So we've ended up probably for the last 3 or 4 years now, we've been using machine learning to help us to gather information from across the web. We bring in information from 200-300 different sources now. And we use AI machine learning to help us triage what is most relevant to the maritime world. And then increasingly, we're using generative AI to help us to summarize data sets, process data sets, produce visualizations. We're finding, although you have to be very careful with how you use it, it is pretty transformative when used in the right way. I think that's a great question, because I think people tend to move straight to things like autonomous vessels. And while that's really exciting, I actually think that's one of the last areas that we'll see AI and automation having a big impact. Where AI struggles is in any kind of highly unpredictable physical work. And to make that work, you need robotics and all sorts of really difficult stuff. Where AI does really well is in knowledge work that involves large data sets. And we can see that across a whole load of shipping professional services. So actually, it's things like the legal profession, shipbroking, maritime services, where I think there's going to be the biggest short-term disruption. And it's both very exciting and also, I think, could create quite a bit of a challenge for a lot of those organizations. So I think it doesn't necessarily take away the need to have skilled workers with a depth of expertise and experience. I actually think that becomes more important. And certainly we've seen in the work that we've done, experimenting using AI to help us, for example, to synthesize data, it needs an expert to be able to unpick whether that synthesis is correct or not, and apply the kind of maritime context. So although I fully appreciate there is a shortage of skilled labor across the industry, I don't think that problem is going to go away. However, what I do think it creates is the opportunity for one expert to do the work that would possibly require 4 or 5 experts within a few years. I think that's sort of where we're going to get to. So I think there is an opportunity for significantly more growth using the existing labour that we've got, but it doesn't take away the need for us to have a pipeline of talent coming into the industry. Sure. So I think it's highly realistic. I think it's important to understand the levels of autonomy and what the definition of an unmanned vessel might be. You could have an unmanned vessel that is operated entirely remotely by humans, and therefore you don't necessarily have to have AI involved in supporting that. Equally, you could have manned vessels that are being operated entirely by automation technologies and AI. And so the two don't necessarily go hand in hand. But I will say that we already know of a large number of unmanned surface vessels that are operating today. Some of them are reasonably large as well. And we also know of merchant vessels that we would think of as traditional ships that are currently being operated manned, but have been designed to operate unmanned. In fact, very recently, DNV approved for the chief engineer to sit ashore, for example, or gave an approval in principle of that concept to support the Ara Birkeland to move the engineering team off the ship and into a shore control centre. So it's absolutely happening. The technology exists to support it. I would say where it will take time is 2 areas. One is the regulatory case and making sure that we're able to operate in a safe environment in a way that is legal and safe. And second is just the economic case as well. Does it actually make economic sense to introduce these technologies? As things like demographics across the industry change, probably that will become the case, but that may be a few years away yet. I think when we think about safety and when we think about risk, the first thing we look at is, does the job need doing at all, first of all? And often, unfortunately, the answer to that is yes. And then second question is, how can we take humans out of the loop, right? That's the best way to increase safety is to not send a person into an enclosed space or not have a person working at heights. And I think AI and robotics have a real role to play there. We've already seen, for example, the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, being used to do things like tank inspections. So you're just taking people out of having to go down a tank. That is a fantastic way to improve safety. But I think on a bigger scale, the types of AI technology that we're seeing adopted across the industry at the moment allows us to also look at safety and risk on a much larger scale. What AI is really, really good at doing, that humans are bad at doing, is taking really large data sets and spotting patterns. So can we take really large data sets, for example, of near miss and safety observations, and use that to spot patterns that might help us predict and therefore stop a major incident happening? I think is a really exciting area of research, and that's gaining some traction. And then the final area is in things like supporting human decision makers to be able to operate their ships safer. So there's some really interesting companies that are, for example, using AI to support the officer of the watch on the bridge in things like collision avoidance and navigation, to help them make better decisions and ultimately avoid those kind of major incidents. And so, yeah, those are three areas. One, just taking humans out of the loop entirely. Two would be looking at sort of big data sets and seeing how we can spot patterns that avoid major incidents. And three is supporting that kind of operational decision making. I think are three really interesting areas for improving safety.